Hey babes, and welcome to Gore&Gossip. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Jordan, and this is your weekly deep dive into all things terrifying true crime cases, cold blooded killers, and the occasional creepy conspiracy.
Plus, haunted dolls, cursed mirrors, and that one time your aunt swore her house was built on a portal to the underworld.
If it's bloody, bizarre, or just plain bone chilling, we're talking about it.
And yes, we're bringing the gossip too, because what's a murder without a little side eye?
So lock the doors, light a candle,
and let's get into it. We have a doozy for you guys today. This is a little cray-cray, I won't lie. I went a little crazy, and this is now going to be a two-parter.
It's not that like you went crazy. There's just lots of details.
I just went a little in depth. Yeah, there's a lot of there's a book on this which I'll talk about. There's I think 2 documentaries. I only watched part of there's a documentary and then there's a 2020 episode that just came out last month about this. There's a lot, guys. There's a lot on this, and this happened about 10 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like a little more than 10 years ago. But it's a doozy. So I got to writing and I was at page 12 and I was like, this is a little nutso, so I'm gonna have to break this up for you guys.
So you get more Nicole time is basically what's gonna happen.
Yeah, so we'll do a part 2 of this, but yeah, so let's just get into it today. We don't really have a lot to start with, so we'll just get right into it because we got a lot going on.
Strap in, babies, let's go.
Yes, yeah. All right, so you guys know how every true crime story kind of starts the same way. They are the perfect family, nice house, great kids, having business. Well, this is unfortunately one of those stories. The McStays were living that California dream. Picture fountains in the backyard, cute stucco home, 2 little boys, and a dog who probably thought life was golden, along with a new puppy adjusting to his new life. Until one day, they suddenly vanished. No warning, no ransom note, just a bowl of popcorn on the counter, some eggs left out untouched, and two kids' toys left mid-play. For years, people thought they'd run off to Mexico, started a new life. But 3 years later, in the middle of the Mojave Desert, someone found what was left of that perfect life. And the person held responsible, they still claim they didn't do it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So let's start with the McStay family. The McStay family was made up of husband and wife Joseph, who's 40, and Summer, 43, and their 2 sons, Gianni, who is 4, and Joseph Jr., 3. This does involve children. I do apologize for you guys. They're so young. It's really, really sad. I'm not really going to get into that because as a parent myself, it's hard to really think about, but it's a lot. Joseph owned his own business called Earth Inspired Products. It was a decorative water wall business. So if you've ever gone into a hotel or a restaurant and you see those, sometimes it's usually behind, in a restaurant, it's usually behind the hostess stand or right in the middle of the entryway. There'll be a big standing waterfall thing with maybe their logo or something on it, or in the hotel sometimes it'll be on the wall itself. I know some spas have them too. That's the kind of business that he ran, and it was pretty profitable from the understanding.
Big bucks for sure.
Yeah. Joseph's parents were Susan Blake and Patrick McStay. Patrick is Joseph's stepfather, who in the 2 Shallow Graves documentary that I mentioned a little bit ago, he said that he met Susan while Joseph was just a boy, but he fell in love with him just as much as he fell in love with Susan. They did split up, Susan and Patrick, but him and Patrick, Joseph and Patrick stayed in contact and very close together throughout Joseph's entire life. They also had another child together, Michael, who was Joseph's younger brother. His mother said in an interview that he was pretty laid back with a funny laugh. He was kind and a very hands-on father. Summer was a real estate agent and noted to be a very devoted mother to the 2 boys and loved Joseph. Summer was actually not her birth name. She was born Lisa Virginia Aranda to her mother Blanche. He was only 14 when she had Summer. She was 14. Yeah. She had 2 other siblings, both by different dads as well. So all 3 had a different dad, which is not necessarily relevant. It's relevant a little bit later to them talking about Summer a little bit, but it's not really No one cares. Tracy and Kenneth were her siblings. According to Down to the Bone, which is a book that was written about this by Caitlin Rothers, it is, guys, if you have a chance, read this book. The information that is in this book is insane. This is why I like wrote so much before like I even got to like a part that you'll understand in a minute, but like this is why I wrote so much, because of this book. But according to this book, she had changed her name to Summer because her friends called her like Summer something. I forget. It was like a little nickname that they called her. They think they changed it around 1996, and she added the last name Martelli, which supposedly had came from her a stepfather that she had. So her last, I think, stepfather, his last name was Martelli, and she had added on, even though there's no official record of that. The boys' names are Gianni Martelli McStay and Joseph Jr. Martelli McStay. So it's just a name that she latched onto for some reason. But that's also the name. Summer Martelli was the name that's listed on her real estate license in 2002. So that's what she goes by. The boys were just two bright little kids growing up with loving parents and a bright future ahead of them. They were both just depicted as being these like fun little boys. The Joseph Jr. was described, they called him like Chubba Chubba because he had like these like chubby little legs.
So cute.
And Gianni apparently like loved dinosaurs, which like that's my kind of kid. I love dinosaurs.
yeah.
Every time we're like in the toy area, because like we can be in there now, we have a kid, I'm like sitting over there playing with the dinosaurs and like showing the baby, and she like loves them. She thinks they're great. She thinks it's so funny. I'm like, I can't wait for you to be older and hopefully you still like them. Jesse Silveria, a friend of the family, told 2020, as their relationship evolved, I saw that both of them really prioritized each other, number one, and then number two, they prioritized their children. She said it brought them all their pleasures living on the coast and by the beach. This was in reference to the fact that the couple had lived in a little bungalow in San Clemente, California, with the when they started having the two boys until late 2009, where they bought a house in Fallbrook, which is the house kind of at the center of all of this. They moved into the house pretty quickly and started working on it when on February 4th, 2010, they vanished without a trace. So it's been 15 years since they vanished, but it's been 12 years since they were found. So, and less than that since somebody was convicted. I'll get to that. Sorry guys, I still have this like incessant cough. It's so annoying. It was 11 days before they were reported missing, and 3 years, like I mentioned, before they were found. So they went 3 years without them being able to be found. Another year went by before someone was arrested for the family's murder, and then 5 more years before that person was found guilty. So 2019 was when that person was found guilty, so very recently.
Oh my God. That's actually insane.
Yeah. 5 years went by before they were actually arraigned and charged and started facing their sentence. In those 3 years, sorry, but what happened in those 11 days before they were reported missing? In those 3 years in between them missing and being found dead? And why is the person who was found guilty refusing to take responsibility for the murders? So let's start at the beginning. Now, in those 11 days, people had tried to get in contact with McStay's. According to Caitlin Rother's book that I mentioned, Down to the Bone, this is basically the timeline, and this is just across her book, the documentary that I had mentioned, Two Shallow Graves, sorry, I forgot it for a second, and a couple of articles that I had looked into. So in the week prior to February 4th, Summer had hired a friend of theirs to come paint the house. He had painted it, but Summer didn't like it, so she had picked out this like beige color. He painted it for her. She like freaked out, apparently, didn't like it, yelled at him, and wanted it like repainted. She was so stressed out about this house for some reason. Everything about like the reconstruct, like their what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my God, I'm like drawing a blank.
The aesthetic
Their
of
renovations.
it.
Yeah,
Oh,
their
okay.
renovations. Yeah. I like couldn't get it out. Something about the renovations of this house was just like stressing her out. Probably between having two young kids, working, trying to make sure that like everything was done, and she just was having a hard time like deciding on what she wanted. And I get that, but like don't take it out on your friends that's doing
Take it
you
out.
favors. She had like apparently tried to hire somebody off of like Craigslist back in January, and the guy like flaked and never showed. So their friend offered to paint the house for them. So there was like a little bit of commotion there. He really didn't want to like go back. He kind of avoided her, and she wanted it done before the flooring was going to be installed. But there was a bit of a stroke of luck. The flooring got pushed back, and she was able to talk to their friend and get him to reschedule to come back. So he had came back on the 2nd and 3rd for like half days and was supposed to schedule with them to come back again. He tried to call Summer on the 5th and then again on the 6th, both with no return call. And because of the hubbubaloo of like how she reacted prior, he just kind of let it go and didn't really press it. He thought like probably just thought like maybe she like has somebody else finish it. Maybe she's not really in the mood right now. Maybe she's freaking out about something, and he didn't want to get yelled at again, so he didn't press the issue.
And I can totally
I
see
get
that,
it. Yeah.
honestly. Like not
Yeah.
wanting to push your friend who you're
Yeah.
trying to help. Like you're like, okay, she'll come to me when she's ready, kind of thing.
Right. Like you just got yelled at for painting this color that she had picked out. I don't want to get yelled at again, so I'm just not going to press the issue. On the 3rd, Joseph had spoken with his father, Patrick, where he told him about a deal he had got on granite countertops for the house. On the 4th, the last day the McStays were seen or spoken to, Joseph had a lunch meeting with Chase Merritt. Susan Blake said she spoke to her son Joseph after the meeting where he complained about feeling ill. Apparently, he was having some like mystery illness, according to her, where he just kept like not feeling good and having issues and whatnot. And he had said that he didn't feel good. Chase Merritt, we'll get to in a minute. I'll just mention his name. He's just a business associate of Joseph, but we'll talk more about him in a little bit. On February 9th, after not hearing from Joseph in days, Chase had said he went over there and no one was home. Chase unannounced, went to Susan's home. So he went to Joseph's mom's house to ask if she had seen or heard from him. And she said she hadn't. She'd also been trying to contact him. So Chase reached out to Joseph's brother Michael, who also hadn't heard from him. And Susan asked Michael to go over there, and he said he couldn't because he was busy. Patrick, throughout this week, had also been trying to get in touch with Joseph since they had last spoke. On February 10th, Patrick called Michael because a man named D. Kavanaugh had emailed and had called him twice. And he didn't answer the phone calls. He didn't really answer the email. And he just said that he was looking for Joseph if he had heard from him. And he was weirded out because he was like, who is this? How do they have my contact information? Like, I don't know him. So Patrick called Michael and was like, who is this person that's trying to contact me about your brother? Your brother's not answering. And he goes, oh, Dad, you do know him. That's Dan Kavanaugh, Dan the hacker. He wasn't necessarily a hacker. We'll talk more about him in a minute, but Dan was a close business associate of Joseph's. He helped create our Earth Inspired Products website, and he helped run it. So he created their website for them, and then he basically ran it and would get every time that they brought in a contract or a client through the website, he would get money from that since he helped run it and promote it and basically do everything with it. So him and Joseph had like a very close business relationship. They talked basically on a almost daily to weekly basis. And he had been trying to get in touch with Joseph about something and had no luck. So he was now reaching out to Patrick. Patrick is involved in the business a little bit. I'll touch on that a little bit later, but basically Patrick had kind of helped Joseph get the business going. He was involved in accounts on the business. Once the business had really taken off and gotten to a good point, Patrick kind of came off the account. So he just couldn't remember who Dan was for a minute. And then he talks about it in the documentary, and he was like, oh yeah, like I remember him now. Like he says like, oh, the hacker. Yeah. And he kind of like laughs when he says it. And it's because he's like a tech guy. So that's why they refer to him as the hacker. It was really silly.
I guess it's silly, but looking back now on it, if you have a business associate called a hacker.
I think that's just what Patrick and Michael like might have. I think that's how Patrick just referred to him. It didn't really
Okay.
seem like it was like something that like Dan called himself. It was something that they referred to him as because he was like this tech guy who did all of like all this techie stuff and he did things. It I'll talk a little bit more about him in a
Okay.
minute because that does kind of come a little full circle, but it doesn't seem like it was something from the way Patrick said it and talked about it and the way it's talked about in other things. It seemed like it was just something that he referred to him as, not as like an actual thing. But Patrick had asked Michael to go over there because now he was really worried. He had been trying to get a hold of his son all week and he was just not getting anything. And now he's getting calls like from his business associate. You know, Susan is having Chase, his other business associate, like show up at her house unannounced. And Susan said that she really didn't know Chase, that he kind of just like showed up and she had like only met him like twice, so she couldn't remember who he was, which is very interesting, but we'll get back to that. And Patrick himself couldn't go because he lived in Texas. So he lived far away, so he couldn't just pick up and go, whereas Michael lived about like 30 minutes from Joseph. But every single time that Patrick asked Michael to go over there, he said no, that he couldn't and that he wasn't worried about it. And he was like, no, I'm busy. Like, I can't just go over there. They probably just went away for the weekend. Like, no. And this irritated me because this went on for days. Like,
Almost 2 weeks.
yeah, well, so it's a little bit of a shorter timeline. So like this is like the 10th, and then on February 13th, he does finally go over there. But like that's 3 days. Well, actually a little bit more than that because Chase went over there on the 9th, like to Susan. So like this is now 4 days. That's way too many days in my opinion.
Way too many days from not hearing from somebody, like
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Come to find out from further research, the reason that he was like, they probably just went away was apparently because Joseph would spontaneously take Summer and the boys away for quick trips and turn his phone off. So it wasn't like abnormal that he would, do that. And Joseph just kind of felt like, oh, they just went on a spontaneous trip. They're just not answering. But what was abnormal was that even when he would do these spontaneous trips, he would still at least let his business associates know where he was and like still take calls and check his emails. But both his emails and voicemail were full. Like you could not get through. And his phone at one point like it just started going right to voicemail because it basically just became dead and turned off. Or was just turned off. So yeah. It was 3 days, like I said, before Chase and Michael went over to the McStay family home on February 13th together. They went over to the house and found that the front door was locked. There's no one answering, no noise coming from inside the home. It should be noted that Chase and Michael did kind of know each other because Michael did work in the business sometimes. Susan, like I had mentioned, she said that she didn't really know him. She'd only met him like twice. Susan and Michael both had like a little bit of dealings with the business, kind of like Patrick did, but just a little less. But Michael did kind of know who Chase was. So they go around back and they like look and they see that they can like kind of get in through the window in Joseph's office. So Michael uses the window, pushes it open and gets inside. He gets in, Chase goes in, and I'm gonna come back to that. I think I have this somewhere else, but there's a little bit more. We'll get to there in a second. But the house, when they get in there, is in a bit of a disarray. They kind of just went in and surveyed the state of the house, they said. There was food left out, like uncooked eggs and bowls of popcorn. They said that there was like 2 little bowls of popcorn, like they were like for kids. The toys from the kids were scattered around. There was clothes strewn about in rooms. There was a lamp upstairs that was knocked over, and there was like suitcases in their closets that were open, like on the floor with like clothes kind of like half folded, kind of put in them, but like that's it. The house was also, like I had mentioned, in the middle of being renovated. So there was, fresh paint out, some fresh paint on the walls. The floorboards had been pulled up because new flooring was going in and like hadn't been finished being installed yet. But worst of all, their dogs were left outside.
What?
How did the neighbors? So they went missing on the 4th, okay, guys? They went missing on the 4th. It is now the 13th.
9 days. What?
How
Dogs
did
barking?
Yeah, how they were outside. They were outside. They did say that there was like a bowl under like a leaky faucet for them for water. They weren't like tied up back there. They were just out there. And apparently there was like a dog bag of food like ripped open.
No.
No.
No way. Those neighbors needed to call the cops. Like,
Yeah. There is something that comes in a little bit with that. But I'll get to that in a second.
Okay, sorry. I keep jumping.
No, it's good. So as I'm writing this, I was like, what do you mean? And then like I read more information and I was like, oh, all right, well,
Okay. Wow.
but still the way it still took too long. It still took too long. Michael, for some reason, still did not really think much of it. He thought it was a little weird that their house was like that, but he wasn't like, whatever, maybe they left in a hurry. What is crazy, and I didn't see in the articles, but I saw in the book, was that Michael brought his family with him. He brought his wife and kids. This is what I said. I'll come back to this in a second. This is what I meant. Chase, so they get inside. Chase goes around to the front from the office, goes around to the front, and lets them into the house to use the restroom. So there was more than just Chase and Michael there. They like initially said it was them, but it came to find out that like Michael and Chase had apparently met at a gas station and then went to the house together, and Michael's family was with him. And then he let them into the house.
Why?
I don't know.
Why? These people have been missing for several days now.
Yeah.
What if you brought them into the house and they were dead inside of the house? What are you doing?
So I guess they had looked a little bit first, but Chase like went around front and opened the door for them so that they can come inside. But like, still, I don't understand why you do that. Like, what if there was stuff like upstairs that
it could be
you hadn't seen that yet? I don't know.
It's a crime scene in my head.
Well, we'll get there.
Sorry. Oh my god, I'm so good at jumping.
It's okay. But I thought the same thing. I'm like, why would you do that? But apparently, people don't have that same opinion. According to Chase in the documentary, it was another 2 days before he finally convinced Michael to go to the police. He literally said in the documentary, now how true this is, I don't know, but this is what he said in the documentary, that he told Michael that if he didn't go to the police, that he was going to. Michael wanted to give it a couple days to see if they'd show up, and then he finally went. I won't even lie, if my siblings were the type to even just like pick up and go somewhere or spur of the moment and not tell anybody, I would be panicking. Like, I cannot handle that. I need to know where my family is at any given moment. My mom literally shares her location with me. We have a huge family group chat. If they're going away, like, we have to know about, like, if anybody goes away or goes anywhere, like, we have to know about it. I could not. If it had been like 2 days and I hadn't heard from my siblings and I'm trying to get in touch with them, I'd be calling everybody I know and like showing up at their house. Like, what do you mean you waited like over a week to check on them?
Nicole, these are also men too.
It's true. That's true.
These are men.
That's true. They don't think. I don't know. I just panic. I'm like, what do you mean? I like, no. You can't not tell me where you are. My siblings like will go away and I'm like, you will tell me when you get on the plane, when you get off the plane, when you get to your hotel. This is my dad's fault. I'm sorry. This is my dad's fault. My dad was like that. This is what happens when you have an overprotective dad that wants to know every single thing that you're doing.
If it helps, I'm the same way. So
yeah, well,
and I have an overprotective mother. So
yeah, I don't understand. Whatever, it is what it is. So he just didn't think anything of it. So February 15th is when he finally goes and reports them missing. According to Michael, he had planned to call if he hadn't heard from Joseph or Summer in 2 days. And I was wondering what happened to the dogs. And well, apparently Michael and Chase just left them there. And Michael said that he was going to, when he filed the missing persons report, he'd go and get the dogs. I guess he was trying to give it a chance to see if they were going to come back, and he didn't want to just take the dogs and then be gone. It does come out that a neighbor did call animal control, the animal control did show, and Michael reportedly had put like a post-it or like a sign on the front door with his phone number on it to call for any information regarding his brother and their family. And animal control called, and she had called in like a a wellness check to the police department, but then Michael was like, no, there was already one, because apparently a wellness check had already been done earlier in the week. They had called in, if somebody had called in a wellness check. I can't remember who it was. I'll let you guys know in the next part because I couldn't find it. I can't find it right now, but there was a wellness check that was done by, I think, just like a family member earlier in the week. They basically like had called the police, said like, I can't get in touch with them. Can you guys just go over there? The police went over there and said, a car's not here. They're not home right now. And they were like, okay, no problem. That's fine. Like they basically were just like, okay, like they're just not home. And like they're just not answering. So I think that led to them believing that they were just like maybe on another one of their spur of the moment trips. So the after talking to Michael, the animal control officer canceled the wellness check and was like, okay, because like obviously nobody's in the house. He already knows nobody's there. And she didn't take the dogs because Michael was going to pick them up. So Michael went and got the dogs. They're fine. It had now been 11. I know. They were just like left there. They were outside. It was fine weather from my understanding, but 11 days they were just left out outside. There. Yeah, it's I digress.
I digress. So many things to say.
I digress on that. I'm like, everybody's just kind of glancing over it, and I'm like, what about the dogs? Like, what do you mean? Yeah, I'll digress now. I'm sorry, guys.
No, I'm sorry. I'm derailing you.
Yeah, you just kind of made him go worse. It's okay. It's all right. So like I said, it had been 11 days now since they were last seen or spoken to. Deputy Michael Tingley was the one to respond and go check out the house. In Caitlin Rother's book, Down to the Bone, Deputy Tingley said that, I hope I sang that right. I'm sorry if it's not right. Tingley, maybe. Tingley. I'm going to go with Tingley. It sounds better. Said that while he didn't see any signs of struggle or break-in, something just didn't feel right about the scene to him. So he saw everything that Jason Michael saw, because this is now like, I don't know, him being like led into the house basically. So he kind of cleared it just to make sure. He did call homicide to come and check out the home, which did take some time. So right now, this is kind of not being, even though he feels weird about it, this is not actively being treated as a homicide. This is just, or like a true missing persons. It's kind of like a voluntarily like missing person thing. Like they just up and left. On the DL though, they were. It just wasn't enough.
Yes.
And you'll see why.
Okay.
At the station the next day, Michael was interviewed. All standard questions really regarding Joseph, Summer, and the boys and his relationship to them. And then he was asked what took so long for him to report them missing or check on them. Michael said to Deputy Tingley that he didn't call or check because he thought they may have just went away. He says, everyone was pushing for me to call, but my thinking was if they took a 3-day weekend because of the holiday, then they took this because it's like right around Valentine's Day. Yeah. Then they took the week and it took the following weekend. That's a 10-day stint. So that's why I didn't call. Should I have called on Saturday? Is that the deal? I should have called on Saturday. So this is like, that's all him. Like that was all him saying to like the deputy, like, I don't know. I just thought that they went away. Should I have called? Is that what you're trying to tell me? That like I did the wrong thing? And Deputy Tingley just basically looks at him and was like, no, there's no right or wrong answer here. Like it was basically based on when Michael thought it was important and asked him like what he thought. And he responded by saying that he was just hoping they had gone to Mexico and took a 2-week vacation. Remember that.
Okay. Mexico 2-week vacation.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not Michael. Michael is not the one who did it. But that was really suspicious to me.
That's also very suspicious.
So, we'll come back to that. Deputy Tingley asked him, did you see anything in the house to indicate this to you, that they just like up and left for a trip? And Michael basically said that he just like walked through, but he didn't really see anything that like seemed like there was a struggle or signs of violence or anything. So like he wasn't sure. Deputy Tingley got homicide detective Dougal to come out, and since Tingley forgot to clear the garage when he did the check of the house, this legally gave Dougal the opportunity to do a walkthrough without a warrant, since it wasn't a crime scene. So like I had said, they were not actually treating this as an active crime yet. There was no warrants, there was nothing happening there. So when Tingley had went to clear the house to like look for that initial call for the missing persons report. He says he forgot to do the garage, so this gave Dougal the go-ahead to check that and then recheck the rest of the house because he was able to check an unchecked area, basically. In the documentary, you hear the recording of the interview with Dougal where he tells Michael not to touch anything or do anything with the house. And because there was no warrants yet, you couldn't like necessarily stop them from going to the house. But he said to him, like, the more you do, like, the harder this is going to be for us for our investigation to move it further. And they weren't necessarily letting them know either that they were treating it as like a crime. So like I had mentioned, it was kind of on the DL because they were just trying to see what evidence they could get to get a warrant, if they could get a warrant for this.
Well, and also like Michael looks a little sussy right now, not gonna lie.
Right.
So they're just like, hey, don't bring anyone else in here.
Yeah. And they're still doing interviews during this. So like
Yeah.
they're still talking to, like, they talked to Susan a little bit. They do end up talking to Chase, which I'll get to. They talk to Dan, they talk to Patrick. So they do talk to everybody, but I'll get to those. I have those kind of laid out. So since it wasn't a crime scene, he couldn't close it off, but he told them the more they touch things, like I said, the harder it would be. When they did finally get the warrant to search, the house was spotless and things were missing because Susan had cleaned the house and Michael had taken some computer stuff. Michael said on record that Dougal told him he could do this, but Dougal denied the claim. Yeah. In those interviews with Michael, he talked a lot about Summer. So you see, Michael and Summer did not get along. Summer didn't like Michael because she didn't like that Joseph was constantly helping him out financially. She thought he was just kind of a burden, and Michael did not take kindly to that. There was also a huge spat between Michael and Summer a while prior to this, where Summer had apparently insulted Michael's daughters and wife. She had like made a comment. He said that his daughters were like dirty or something like that. I don't know. There was no really context to that other than she said that. So that was kind of fucked. And I don't know why she said that. They got into it and they basically, I know, I'm like, what do you mean? And I think they're young too. So like, I don't know what she meant by that.
Why are you calling young girls dirty? That's crazy.
Like, I don't know if she just meant like dirty as in like filthy or like dirty as in like
too many. There's too many undertones for that.
I don't know. There was no context around it. Just that's what happened.
Okay, I'll move past it.
They got into it. Basically, him and Summer didn't really speak much after that. Summer hated when he was around. So Joseph kind of just like kept them separate. Michael described Summer as a Colombian American. She was Colombian. She was American. But this specific distinction and the way he described her led Detective Dougal to look into possible connections with Colombian gangs because that can be really intense. Like really, really intense, and things like this can happen. Whole entire families could go missing. Like, it can get crazy. But it came up fruitless. There was nothing to those claims. There was nothing to that. He just was looking for something. Dougal was just looking to grasp to anything, basically. There's also a story about Summer's ex. People do bring up Summer's ex, who was an ex-Marine, I think they said, who had a history of domestic violence, and it was a little scary, but I think that also came up fruitless. I'm going to add more to that to the next part. Don't worry about it. I hadn't gotten there fully. But you remember that story I said about Summer hiring a friend to paint the house?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, he comes back a little bit right here. So on February 16th, and I realized I never said his name. His name is Jeff McCarger. McCarger got a call from Susan to meet at Joseph and Summer's home because she didn't want to be there alone because for some reason she was there. She was frantic. She wanted to be close, I guess, look at whatever. When he got there, though, she was already inside cleaning. He asked her why she was doing that, and didn't the police need this stuff for evidence? And Susan looked at him and said, "I've got to protect Elijah." He had no clue what she meant by this, and he didn't press. He wanted no part of it. And I bet you're wondering, who the heck is Elijah? Well, me too, because Upon seeing that, I had no idea who Elijah
Who
was.
the hell is this man?
This is in the book. Elijah is actually Joseph's teenage son with his ex Heather, who is really barely mentioned. The first time I came across his name was in Caitlin Rother's book. So I think it was because he was a minor. He wasn't really there, but Elijah did actually talk during the trial, during the family statements to the accused. He had some. I'll mention it in part
Later.
2 what he says, but yeah, he says some things, and I think he's just really not really brought up a ton. Also, Heather and Summer did not get along. Summer apparently did not like Heather at all, so that was a whole thing. But that's why. So when his name came up, I was like, "Who in
the
the
heck?
Sam heck is this?" I was like, "Who's Elisha? Why are we protecting him?" I think of course, my mind immediately thinks like, "Oh my God, did Elijah do something?" But it really, I think, was because like I think she didn't want Elijah to have to see like the house like that
In a
and I
disarray
get
and
it, but like you weren't supposed to touch anything. And apparently Susan says she called Dougal in the middle of cleaning and asked if it was okay. And he said no. He told her no and to leave it and to just leave. And like the nicest and most like, like firm way he possibly could. And Michael, he also told her to have Michael return the computer stuff that he took because Michael Michael took computer stuff and he said that he asked Dougal if it was okay. And Dougal was like, I never said that. And he was like, and I told him as soon as I found out to bring it back, that he had to bring it back.
what?
I don't know.
The fuck?
At trial in 2019, so that's when the trial happened. That's when the person was arraigned, indicted and found guilty. She was asked if she sprayed Windex or bleach cleaner to the house or swept the floors. She said no.
Is it Susan?
I swear to God, this whole family is weird. Yeah, I don't know why she did that. And I'm going to talk about Patrick a little bit more in the next one, but I feel for him. In the documentary, The Two Shallow Graves, he talks about how he was kind of pushed out after Joseph went missing and was after the bodies were found. And I feel really bad for him because he was just a father who loved his child. And of course, that's just one side of the story because, documentaries can skew. But even from what I read, it kind of just seems like he was pushed out a little bit. I'll mention more of that later. Don't worry. We'll do that in part 2. But yeah, she said no. I don't know why. But she did it. She told detectives in 2014. So she told detectives on statement in 2014 that she wiped the windows down with Windex and that she was sure she didn't see any blood on the dining table when she sat down to eat lunch because she ate lunch there.
Girl, why? You're in a crime scene.
So you said on record that you did wipe down the windows and that you didn't see any blood, but she's not the only one. So they just wasn't a close enough look to actually determine if there was or not. But from Chase and Michael's glance, and then Tingley and Dougal's glance, like there was nothing that they could see. And then she went and cleaned everything. So like, was there something, or did she just like become manic and wanted to do something and clean their house if they were coming home? I don't know.
It's fluffy.
Yeah. During all of this, the family's one car that was missing was found as it had been towed on February 8th from San Yistro, I think is how you say it, Yistro Mall. It was a white Suzu Trooper SUV. They had another green Dodge SUV, but that was at the house. So they had two. The trooper was said to be mainly Joseph's, and Summer mainly drove the Dodge. The security guard of this mall said that he didn't notice the car until probably around 9 o'clock at night, and then he called for tow at 10:19 p.m., where it was taken away 45 minutes later. Detective Dougal went to the store that it was parked in front of and the surrounding stores to ask for video footage from around 5 p.m. or later because the security guard said that he had estimated that that's when it could have been parked in that area. So he basically watches like 3 big lots. So he wasn't necessarily sure, but he said it could have came in around this time. I just don't know. And there was no footage of the family. Detectives did also look in San Yistro. I should really look that up. I'm sorry, guys. the port of entry into Mexico, because there is a port of entry to Mexico in this area. So that's why this is kind of important. And there was footage of a family of 4 crossing the border into Mexico that seemed to be doing so of their own free will, without anybody else, undistressed, willingly. And it wasn't a positive ID, but I guess the heights, the sizes, it looked like 2 little boys. It looked like a husband and wife. It looked like it possibly could have been them from the way the footage looked. You can look up that footage and see it. To me, it just looks like any possible family, but because they were estimated to have been, and this is where the car was found at that time, on that day of February 8th, it's thought that it could be them at this point in time. A neighbor who lived across the street from them had also come forward with camera footage from the front of her house. The only thing detectives were able to get was the green SUV entering the driveway on February 3rd at 4:37 p.m. and then what appeared to be the McStay's white SUV leaving at 7:47 p.m. on the 4th. The way the cameras were angled, so she had like one kind of like on the porch and then like one off to the side by like her fence, I think it was, like near her like front fence or like garage or something. Yeah, like what I was saying was the way the cameras were angled, you could only see the bottom of the car. So like it only had like from like the bottom, I think like lip, like I don't even think you could really see like the license plate and then like the tire. So you couldn't really see much, and it was like the end of their driveway. So you could only see them like coming out or like going in, but you couldn't see like any like thing
Who's
actually
in it?
in the drive.
Yeah, who's like in the car or anything.
Yeah. One of the cameras had stopped working, so there was missing footage from February 5th to the 14th. So if anybody went in and out of the house at that point, of course there was the camera that you could see like their driveway a little bit on. Detective Dan Lebach wanted to bring in the neighbor's computer to the forensic lab to see if they could recover the footage before it would get like written over. But with the McStays missing and everything being uncertain, she was nervous. She didn't want to give up her computer and cameras for fear of something happening. She said that if they had really insisted that she would have, which
I think you should have just given them up.
Nah, whatever. But by the time that she had like kind of decided that she probably should have, it was already written over anyway. So we lost that.
Oh my God.
And because there's no like warrant at this time, like that, because they're not actually treating this as a criminal case, they couldn't get a warrant to like subpoena her to give it to them. So
Kidding me.
Detective Dugall turned to Dan Kavanaugh next. Dan had been in Hawaii, so Dugall had to talk to him basically over the phone. He did come back in and talk to a captain. Believe his name is Fred Roy. I will confirm that for you guys later, but I'm pretty sure that's who he is, and he did have a conversation with him as well. Apparently, there had been a little bit of a falling out between Dan and Joseph. Joseph had apparently been trying to, according to Dan, push him out from the website and from paying him. He'd been trying to kind of go around him. There was an argument that ensued over it. Some threats from Dan happened regarding taking down the business. He basically like had told Joseph that like he either was going to buy him out of it or that he was going to do everything in his power to take down the business. And he had claimed that he was like a co-owner of the business, that like everything that him and Joseph did was 50-50, but his payouts, he said that he also had access to like the accounts, but that Joseph always paid him via PayPal. I don't really know all about that.
That's a little sketchy.
That's what he says. And when you do poll, like when they did poll, like, you know, the business stuff, Patrick's name was on it from when he had initially started it. And then it had turned over to Dan. And then it had like, or I'm sorry, not Dan. It had turned over to Joseph. And then Joseph and Chase's name was on there too, but not Dan's. Dan's was never on any of the paperwork. So if they had an agreement amongst themselves that Dan helped them, it was never official on any licensing for the business itself. Ultimately, Joseph had told his family that he felt he had no choice but to pay Dan what he wanted so that he could be bought out of the website or just be paid off so that he didn't do what he said he was going to do. And I'm going to assume that this is also may have been where the hacker comment may have came from. It doesn't say that, but that's kind of what it would seem like to me, why Patrick would start referring to him as the hacker. On February 10th, though, 2010, so 6 days after the disappearance, Kavanaugh allegedly hacked into Joseph McStay's PayPal account, changed the password, and transferred $79,000 to himself. Apparently, there was money that he was supposed to get paid from Joseph that he never got paid, and that's why he was looking for him. And he was like, dude, come on, like, you always pay right away, like, what's happening? So apparently he went into the PayPal account, and did it himself. The Captain Roy basically asked him later, like, if you had access to the accounts, like, why did you do that? And
what?
I'll talk about it in a little bit more, but basically what happened was that Joseph had a different account that he was moving things into, and Dan did not have access to that account per se. Like, he didn't have the actual, like, authorization on it like he did on the other account. So he went in there and paid himself, but it's all alleged. There's no actual, like, thing that he did do this.
Oh,
But
brother.
there is a PayPal, like, transaction to Dan on the 10th from Joseph. So he also, while talking to DeGaulle, had basically admitted to hacking into Summer's personal email, despite claiming he did not send any money to himself. And, like, had basically offered to, like, look into their emails for them. And he was like, listen, if you have access to them, like, tell me any information that you have, but, like, do not be, like, doing all that.
You're not an investigator too, so
Yeah.
why are you doing
Like,
that?
he had just, like, offered to be like, hey, like, I do have access to these emails, like, I can, like, look for you guys, and, like, if there's any information that I find, like, I'll send it to you. But, like, the way he said it was more like he admitted to, like, hacking into their emails, but the investigators kind of just overlooked it since Dan had claimed he had ownership of the business, and there was no proof necessarily yet disputing otherwise. So, like, they kind of just took his word for it that he had access to the accounts, because nobody was saying that he didn't have access to these, like, email accounts. So, like, they're not under the impression currently that, like, he was actually hacking into them. And they kind of just ignored it.
Like that.
But Dan was in Hawaii during this time, and according to him, he had been there for a month. So he didn't do this himself. He also was not charged. I'm just going to say that. But it's sketchy. He's sketchy.
He didn't do this himself. I think you had a Freudian slip there.
It's more about my ideas than who the actual person is.
Oh.
Yeah. I definitely did, but it was more about, like, my ideas of what is actually happening versus him actually being a part of it. Then there was Chase Merritt, who I've mentioned quite a few times now. Chase was referred to as, according to Michael, Joseph's chief engineer. So he had worked for Joseph for some time. He was the one who came up with the designs. He was the welder. So he was a big part of this business. He had put off actually talking to the detective. So, okay, I definitely did accidentally delete the where I had talked about Chase and Joseph's relationship. Okay, well, I will tell you guys now because I know it anyway. So Chase and Joseph had been pretty close, according to Chase. He says in the documentary that they would, like, have dinner together, like, weekly. Like, their families would have dinner together weekly. They would take turn, like, Joseph and Michael, or, oh my god, I keep saying Michael because his name is just right there. Joseph and Chase would, like, take turns, like, basically, like, going back and forth to each other's houses. They would go surfing together. They'd go paintballing together. They spoke basically daily because of business, but he said they didn't just talk business, they talked personal too. So according to him, Joseph was his best friend. They talked all the time, and he did a lot for this business. And Patrick, Joseph's dad, even says that Chase was a big part of the business, that he did a lot and that he did really good work, that he was a really good welder. So he basically did all of the welding for the designs, and he did a lot of the designs itself. Sorry, I don't know how that got deleted out of, I probably got deleted while I was moving things around because I shuffled a lot around. But there you go. That's about Chase now. So he had said that he had put off talking to the detectives at first because he knew there was a warrant out for his arrest for something else. He had only served part of a sentence for commercial burglary that the judge had allowed him to do in 2 separate stints. So I guess when he got arraigned for that, the judge told him, okay, you can do this amount of time and then you can take a break, and then you can do this amount of time so this way he could be with his family. He also had some health issues that he was dealing with, so the judge basically allowed him to deal with it. He also had been like known to be a little bit like low on money because of, you know, his past. He had a little bit of a rap sheet, not big, but a little bit of a history of, you know, some criminal behavior, and I think some drug use was in there too. But so the judge kind of was like a little bit lenient with the sentence. He knew he was trying to get himself back on his feet. He said he had to have heart surgery, which delayed him from serving the rest of his sentence. So I guess something happened and he was on his way to the hospital, he said. And he told his wife, who was driving him there, that he like wasn't going to make it to the hospital. And she turned him around and brought him to a fire station. And the firefighters basically like helped save his life and get him to the hospital and have this emergency surgery done.
Wow.
So he said he knew that there was a warrant out for his arrest. But the detectives basically like said to him, like confirmed his like fear, like not confirmed it, but like basically said to him, like, listen, like we're not going to arrest you. We just want to talk to you. Like, we have nothing to do with that. That's completely separate. Just come in and please talk to us. So he did. And he had talked with his wife. And he had decided it was too important to worry about being arrested. So he decided to go in, and they did, like I said, say, we're not, you know, we have nothing to do with that right now. We just want to talk to you about this. Chase gave Detective Dugall handwritten notes from his meeting with Joseph on February 4th because they met that day.
Okay.
So Chase and Joseph, yeah. Oh my God, there's a whole part missing. I'm sorry, guys. So Chase and Joseph had met on February 4th. They had a meeting that day at the local Chick-fil-A. They went over some things. They had handwritten notes from the meeting. They also apparently had a couple phone calls, according to Chase, a little bit during that day. There is a little bit of conflicting articles. I saw in one article that it was like a CNN like question thing that was really nicely laid out, but in one of it said that Chase had gotten a call from Joseph around 8 o'clock that day, and that he like looked at his phone and said that Chase had said that, according to them, Chase had said this, that he had gotten a call around 8 o'clock. He looked at his phone and said he was tired, didn't want to answer it, and then that was it. That was the last time he had gotten anything from Joseph. But also, according to Joseph in the documentary and in the book and a couple other things, he did talk to him a couple more times on the phone that day about other things regarding the business that they had continued to talk about. Just to wrap up on that, like notes that he had given him, or that he had given Detective Dugall, Joseph had apparently given Chase a credit card number to purchase QuickBooks Pro software. This is part of that other account that Dan was talking about. Apparently they were moving stuff into this QuickBooks Pro software program and moving money to a different account. He said that Joseph wanted to move to this on an account that Summer didn't have access to because she had a problem with credit cards. Dan said that he was doing this to cut Dan out. So there's like a little bit of things. It's not necessarily conflicting, just two things happening at once. Two things can be true at once. Summer may have had issues with credit cards, was trying to take money from the business. Joseph was getting probably mad about it and didn't want to do it anymore, so he moved it to an account she didn't have access to. He could have actually been trying to cut Dan out at the same time and was moving everything to an account that he didn't have access to as well, so he can start completely cutting Dan out and going around him. But he did go on to talk about Summer and how no one really liked her or wanted Joseph to marry her, but that no one was her enemy or would want to harm her. She was just, he said, a pain in the butt. So it seems like she just, not everybody had something nice to say about her. Susan also and her had a estranged relationship. there was a bit of a tiff that happened between the two of them, and Summer really didn't want Susan around. So it just seems like there was a lot going on with Summer as well. Like I had mentioned, they brought up her ex, who they did look into. Nothing came of that. Also in this interview, which was interesting, it is in the book. So Caitlin Rothers basically like lays it out for you, is that Dugall points out to Chase that he keeps referring to Joseph in past tense. Like it keeps like slipping in there. And he responds with, "Oh, am I?" And he's like, "Yeah, is there any reason?" And he's like, "Do you know anything?" And he says, No, like not at all. But after this, he kept giving interviews and he kept talking.
Oh my God.
And you know what they say about chatty people.
Oh my God.
Detective Dugall did get a search warrant of the house and the car. Detectives, so we're here days later. It's been like 14-ish days, whatever, more than that, I think, at this point. He finally gets a judge to sign off on a warrant, and they pour over everything. This warrant allows them to search the house, the cars, the computers, basically everything. Unfortunately, because the house had been cleaned by Susan, this left investigators with basically nothing and just more suspicion. The most that they were able to find in the house were some documents, including a note to vacate their old apartment. So like that old little bungalow that I had talked about earlier. Apparently they had received a notice to vacate, so they must have been like in the process of trying to leave. Something must have happened. There could have been like a payment slip while they were moving into the new house and a notice to vacate, or it could have just been like an end of the lease kind of thing. There was a light colored spot on the carpet near the front door. So there was a spot on the carpet that like was discolored. It was lighter than the rest of the carpet around it, which can indicate possible bleach use. They were able to collect computers, SIM cards, cameras, and a few old cell phones. In the Dodge, the green SUV that was left at the house, was Joseph's soccer gear, a few kids' toys, and a video camera. But missing was the keys.
What?
The keys were missing from this car. The Trooper SUV was picked up from a tow yard and sent to a crime lab for a full look over. The keys were also missing for this car, not as abnormal, because if they had left, they would have taken the keys with them.
Yeah.
So they had to kind of jimmy it in there. The rear seats had like the kids' two car seats, but according to investigators, it was also packed with belongings. A few items found in there were medicines, like different kind of cold medicines and antibiotics and stuff, and inhalers for Joseph, leaving questions as to why the family would leave important items like this behind if they were just like leaving and going on a trip. Why wouldn't they just like take his medicines with him, like inhalers? Why wouldn't they take the antibiotics with them? And the trunk was apparently packed with kids' toys. So like if they were fleeing, you would think they took these toys with them for the kids to have something with wherever they were going. But then they just left the truck and left them in the truck. So what happened that they just left everything in the truck like that?
So weird. And for it to be parked at that mall.
Yeah. And apparently that mall, according to the couple articles that I read and that security guard, so that mall is like really, really close to the border. I think there's like even like a walkway over, like an airwalk over that, a pedestrian like walk over to like that the other side. So you know how like sometimes you'll see like those like pedestrian walks where you like walk up it, go across the street and then go down, so you don't have to worry about trying to cross the street.
Yeah.
Apparently there was something like that, and it was very common for people to like leave their cars there and cross the border and then like come back. But it was technically illegal. It was private property, so cars were getting towed from this area all the time. So it wasn't like abnormal that this car was just left here. That's why the security guard was kind of just not like so crazy about it or reporting it, because it just happened all the time. The forensic tech, Denise Williams, was criticized later actually for the way she swabbed for DNA in the Trooper. She did it by what I understand as like using two swabs as once, thinking it would help pick up smaller DNA samples. She said that like if there was like if there was going to be samples, it was probably going to be small, and she thought that this was going to be more efficient. But some think that this could have messed up those samples and that it should have been 2 separate swabs, so that she should have went over it once and then took another swab and went over it again. So people didn't like the way she did that. And there was stuff that was pulled from it. We will talk about that in part 2, but I guess it wasn't enough for some people. I don't really know how else to phrase that. By February 18th, 14 days after the family went missing, it hit national news. The story of a family of 4 vanishing into the night without a trace became sensationalized, airing out the McStay's family's dirty laundry, igniting rumors and false sightings. And that is where we're going to end it, guys.
God, Nicole.
So, I know. So in part 2, we'll talk a little bit more about those DNA samples. We'll talk about what was found on those computers, because there was some interesting searches on those computers relating to Mexico. And then we will also get to how the case went cold for a couple of years before finally being found in the Mojave Desert, and how they were found, and then who officially is the killer, who was arrested and tried and found guilty. And it's not that I don't think it's this person. I think it's kind of obvious. I've already said who it's not. I think it might be a little obvious to who it might be, but I don't think he acted alone.
You slipped up. You said he. You've been doing so good.
I know.
You've been saying
it's okay.
they. You slipped it up.
I think that it's okay. I think you guys kind of know who it is already. So I just don't think that he did it alone, in my opinion. I think he's like vehemently like saying that he didn't do it still. And I don't think he's going to give up if somebody was in it with him, which I think is ridiculous. I don't know why, but I don't know. I just really don't think he did it alone. There's just a lot of weird shit that happens in this. But again, that's just me thinking, because documentaries get to me and always make me think.
I get you. Oh my gosh. Now I'm going to go watch this documentary. Thanks, Nicole.
It's really good. It's really good. So the, like I said, it's a documentary on, it's a Discovery documentary, but you can watch it on, I think Hulu, and I believe HBO Max has it as well. And then there is the book, like I had mentioned, Caitlin Rother's, what is it called? I mentioned it quite a bit, and now I'm like
Two
blanking
Shallow
on the name. Two Shallow Graves is the documentary. The book is Down to the Bone.
So close. I knew
by
it.
Caitlin Rother. So Caitlin Rother's book, Down to the Bone, and then Two Shallow Graves is the documentary. There's also, like I had mentioned, so the reason that it came up in my searches was because October 3rd. What day is it? October 3rd. Sorry.
Mean Girls.
It just came in. Pretty sure it was October 3rd. There was a 2020 episode released on this. So it kind of reignited the conversation regarding this.
Now I want to know. Guess we gotta
wait. It
was
really good. Yeah. So you guys have to wait, and we will pick up next time. And I'll let you guys know the rest of it. It's crazy. Yeah. Well, whether it's crime, conspiracy, or just straight up spooky, we're gonna keep talking about it. Like, follow, comment, and stay tuned for new episodes each week, because it'll just keep getting dark and spooky from here. Also, remember, guys, please send in your stories to goreandgossippod@gmail.com. That is goreandgossippod@gmail.com. Please send us in any of your stories we would love to read and that you want us to do an episode and talk about. So stay nosy. Yes. So stay nosy, stay spooky, and we'll see you next time, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.